We're running a series called Coffee and Chat. It doesn't really matter because I'm drinking beer, so whatever time of day, as long as you bring something to drink. I'm with Dan Neeld today, experienced salesperson and sales leader in the tech industry. Happened to leave a job, or particularly now looking for a job during the coronavirus pandemic. So Dan, please introduce yourself and let's really dig straight into it about what it's like being a candidate looking for a job during these times.
Yeah, hi everyone. I think just to give you a bit of background about myself, as Jesse's mentioned there, I'm a sales leader, certainly within the educational technology market, and I have been for the past 15 years, really moving through the ranks from individual contributor, team leader, head of department, all the way through to sales director, both here in the UK and internationally. And as Jesse mentioned then, I actually left a perfectly good job prior to the pandemic kicking off, and have gone through a very roller coaster of emotions that everybody I think goes through. And I think these have just been heightened quite a lot with the current situation. So prior to that, as I mentioned before, working within EdTech, working across both the public sector, corporate, governmental, channel sectors, etc. I've had quite a lot of conversations with people and certainly colleagues in the past with what that currently looks like now, and how they're feeling whilst in this pandemic, and it mirrors very, very greatly with somebody looking for a new role as also somebody that's still in position and in post. So yeah, I don't know, Jesse, do you want me to just jump on with sort of what it's been like since?
Yeah, listen, let's set the scene. I gave you some statistics on the preamble before we jumped on this on recording, but there's some frightening stats out there. HMRC have said that there's 6.3 million people that have been furloughed. That's a frightening amount of people. £8 billion have been funded. That's something like 23% of the active workforce. I'm just going to give some other statistics without making it sound like it's a difficult job finding a new job. Apparently, one job has, on average, 118 applicants. 20% of those are expected to get an interview, which is about 23 people. Obviously, only one normally gets a job per role. And so I was just looking at that statistic, and I thought, okay, I'd better find some good news. And I looked on LinkedIn as a starting place, and in the last 24 hours in the UK, there were 2,500 jobs posted. In the last month, there's been 376,000. I don't know whether, I haven't really done the research about it dropping off, but obviously, bear in mind that companies are suffering massively. The fact that, getting a job interview is tough enough as it is with the amount of applicants. We don't know what the new world is going to look like. Again, statistically, they're saying that 1 in 4 companies are going to make redundancies, at some point because of the coronavirus. The world looks bleak, but for some reason, it feels like there's hope and there's opportunity there. Just to I suppose, ring fence a little bit or frame what you said. You left a perfectly good job. We can dig into that if you want, and that's not necessarily important, but you're an experienced individual. You left a perfectly good job prior to coronavirus. Knowing that, knowing now that it's tough, would you do anything different, knowing that, if with hindsight, what would you do differently, I suppose, first and foremost? Would you do anything different?
I think my situation's slightly different. I'd already had the mindset that I was going to take some time off. I've done, as I say, 15 years, and 10 of those have been internationally, and not really had some family time. So I'd already made that decision that I was taking 2-3 months off. However, that still hasn't stopped the anxiety that I'm sure everybody feels when they're looking for a role. I think I can only talk for myself. I think that having a structured approach to what I've been doing has really helped, but also knowing that there is an end in sight.
Okay, so let's just pick up on it. So you wanted to take some time off anyway. So the question, I suppose, knowing what you know now, would you change leaving the last role?
Yeah, hindsight's a good thing. Would I probably have stuck out for a few more months? Realistically, yeah, I probably would have.
Okay, and that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So just before we go into about how you structure
Yeah.
yourself, because obviously as an active job seeker
Hmm.
and an excellent candidate, I might add, what well, tell us a little bit more about your professionalism in regards to, like, you as a sales leader, the type of companies, the type of industries. Just showcase yourself a little bit. Let's just talk about you for a second, based in the old world. What is your
Hmm.
experience, in more
Yeah.
and succinctly, if possible?
Yeah, of course. So as I mentioned, started off like very well, probably every sales leader in any industry, really feet on the street, cutting my teeth at working within an area and a channel. So for myself, I'm from the Midlands, so I was looking after the Midlands, and really drove and worked really hard to progress into learning and understanding a lot more about industry, about businesses, etc. And I was quite fortunate to work at a very good company to start off with, a company called Findell Education, but they allowed me to grow, and they could see that my development into management was kind of the channel that I was looking at taking, because of the way that not only I interacted with customers, but I interacted with the wider community of the team. And I actually then took that actually into leadership and into management. So my first sales management role was only working with one other person actually to start off with. And it was all about getting to understand them as a person, more than necessarily their skill set to start off with, but what drives them. What gets them up and out of bed every morning? Is it a case of, are they wanting to become the next manager? Are they actually wanting to plod along? What's their career progression? What does it look like? What enthuses them? What areas of improvement are there, and how can I work together with them to be able to really guide and coach them? And that hasn't really disappeared from. I've been quite fortunate that I've managed ones and twos, but I've also managed teams of 24, 25, all the way up to being part of the management team of 43. So it's really getting to understand those individual people, individual contributors as people to start off with. I really think that is one thing that we do miss as we grow up, or we move up the sales ladder, shall we say.
Let me just jump in, because obviously you're talking about now the growth of a salesperson during your career and becoming a sales leader.
Yes.
And I talk about this quite a lot, that I think being a sales leader or a sales manager particularly is a little bit overrated. And if I could go back and talk to myself years ago, maybe I would question whether I would do that.
Yeah.
Or do it the same way, should I say? What's your view on regards to, like, what you learned, the transition being a salesperson, an individual contributor, to managing a team, being responsible for people, and what that looks like for you in the future?
Yeah, it's I think you identify a great point there, that management's not for everybody, and it's not necessarily the pinnacle. And I think that people do get blinded by
It becomes a
the
career path, right? It's a natural career path.
exactly.
I think it's a sales.
Yeah.
How many people have I interviewed that said, where are you going to be in 5 years? And they cheekily turn around and say, well, I want to be in your seat in 5 years. And we sort of say that that's, it's okay. But the reality is, do you really want to be a sales manager or a sales leader?
Hmm.
It is overrated.
Yeah, definitely. And unfortunately, I think if you flip it on its head and look from a leadership team downwards, you identify those candidates quite early on, because they are good at sales, because they are hitting their targets, their pipeline is greater than everybody else's, their conversion rate's greater than everybody else's. But actually, moving them into that next level, you're almost stripping away what they're good at, and not everybody can adapt to that. And I certainly think that I know that my skill set was as a salesman to start off with. I've had to work very, very hard to become a sales leader, and actually change and adapt my approach, my understanding, my skill set to accomplish that.
So I think,
not always.
I'm going to jump in again. I think leadership and management get confused, and they're two different things. Again, getting to know you over the last few weeks, particularly, I think that you have a great presence, and clearly you've got industry knowledge and tech experience. the sales part, which I say is, is there. From a management perspective, I'm not saying whether you're a manager or not, but I can definitely see you as a leader, someone who can inspire others and come up with strategic vision that can lead organizations and do all of that, but quite often, and I've worked with, a variety of people and CEOs and managing directors and owners of companies where they still want to be at the coalface and still add value. And I think that, it's quite refreshing to be able to work with people that are still quite hands-on in the whole approach. Otherwise you sort of get lost in this sort of, it's too strategic, you're too far away from the teams, and you become sort of a paper person, sort of pushing bits of paper around and, just having a lot of meetings and not actually do anything at the ground. What's your favorite part of that? Where would you align yourself in regards to where you are now or where you aspire to be?
I think that you raised a few good points there, and I think that the good say, and sorry to just slightly go off on a tangent, but I will come back to the question. I think some of the great sales leaders that I've worked with, and certainly that I try to not necessarily emulate, but work and learn from and take, are those leaders that are able to roll their sleeves up and help, but also are able to empower their staff to be able to do that, and not necessarily sit back, but be able to coach and guide and step in accordingly, but allow the teams to really think for themselves, make their own decisions that are for the greater good of the business, but also customer focused and for the greater good of the customer, but then jump in and support where is necessarily. And I think that for me personally, that makes a sort of a vital sales leader, as opposed to a manager that is literally just on the CRM looking at where the deals are, tracking, etc. Yes, we all know we need to do that. But not everything is about KPIs. Not everything. It is really about that holistic approach to working with your team. But certainly that empowerment, but also that being able to create that strategy and get that and communicate that strategy across and get the buy-in from the team. They have to believe in you as a leader before anything else. And the only way that I see that happening is definitely by rolling your sleeves up, being almost in the trenches as such, and progressing forward that way. That's what I would certainly look at doing. I think in regards to myself, career progression and how I want to work, I certainly want to keep that element. I would never want to be so much companies having the ivory towers, etc.
Never say never, Dan. Never say
well,
never. Listen, I'm going to cut across here because I just want to jump into something. I think it's quite important.
Yeah.
Proven salesperson, got a sales leadership style which you've just described that you aspire to be. Great. The type of company you're going to work for, want to go and work for. Are you going to be someone that can be, on the ground, maybe as first man, individual contributor grade, and build this system around you and scale a team, or do you need to go straight in at the top? What's your view on that?
It's a great question, and without sort of saying it tongue in cheek, or saying it tongue in cheek, should I say? I'm very flexible to both of that. I've actually been fortunate to have experience in both areas, where I've been brought in as a sales director with a smallish team to grow that already, but an established team. But I've also been that individual contributor that has come in, feet on the street, create the market, or identify the market, identify the sales strategy, and then develop a team around that. So I'm very, very flexible in what that next role looks like. It's more about the company for me, if I'm being brutally honest. It's about, is that company progressive? Are they looking at solving solutions that customers require? And can I believe in that with the ethos, with the ethics, etc.?
We're going to come back to that maybe as a part of what you're doing about your job, how you've set your stall out for job hunting. And I think if we try and make a note to come back to that, what I'd say is maybe just talk about what your ideal role would look like, without selling yourself short or stopping yourself from opening your candidacy to other companies that might be looking for someone like you, and you saying, well, I need to be managing a team. But ultimately, what's your ideal position right now, do you think? Job title, type of company, You know, what's that look like? Don't talk about culture. I'm talking about
Yeah.
just,
What
you know,
the
on
role.
paper, companies maybe you admire that you'd work for. We can name them if you want, but you know, if you just want to describe them, then do so.
Yeah, I think that I'm not title proud,
But we
or
have to give it something. A
I
role
know,
of
I know.
responsibility and a
I
title
think
is part of that.
that certainly I would be looking at the sort of head of sales type of role, sales director, head of partnerships, etc. That sort of management leadership area.
Okay. Size of company, location,
Yeah,
sector, you know.
and that's where it's quite difficult actually to answer that or give you a very specific in answer, because for the last decade I've been working internationally. All of my experiences have been working with remote teams, with some remote, some actually internal, etc. So actually, the company that I'm looking to work with could be an American, could be a British company, Australian, etc. Sector-wise, I would certainly say that because I have such a great understanding and experience of the edtech market and certainly the educational space or public sector space, I would be probably looking at focusing on companies that are flirting between edtech as well as corporates as well.
Okay.
I think that there's quite a lot of synergy with what my experience are to what they're potentially looking at doing and how we grow, because a lot of the channel partnerships, a lot of the corporate enterprise complex deals, etc., are very, very similar.
I'd agree. I think there's a lot of transitional experience between when you're in that type of technology that can work across those two sectors, and they're broad sectors anyway, but you know that is something that is good. But I'm going to move on, and I just want to talk now about, you know, let's talk about the shitstorm that we're in at the moment, and that you're a job seeker during this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of touched on it before, you know, it's obviously you're thinking about how it makes you feel. How does it make you feel? What are you doing to control your controllables, and how you're approaching, you know, looking for a new job? Give some people some advice that might be in your situation.
Yeah.
Give them some confidence that it's not all doom and gloom.
Doom and gloom, yeah. Let's tick off the emotion part first of all, because that is the one that is going to be the most, I believe, the most critical part that everybody's going to go through. There will be peaks and troughs. And I can't stress that highly enough, because we all have external factors that are actually contributing to us getting a job. Mortgages, rent, families, etc. Money at the end of the day. And we all have
affecting a lot of people, right? Exactly
that. And one thing that I would try to do is, if that is not necessarily the main driving factor, try and take a step back is the honest answer, and evaluate who you are as a person, evaluate what your skill sets are, what that industry looks like, what that perfect company looks like, before you start scattergun approaching. And because I think that is the sort of the knee-jerk reaction that everybody does. And I'm not going to lie, I did it. I really was like, okay, I knew I was going to take time off. Lockdown happened. Oh, okay, I need to maybe get something in the bag quite soon, and really scattergun approach companies that just weren't the right fit for me. And they were emotionally led, as opposed to being really using my head, stripping that emotion out and really targeting. So I definitely do think take a step back. Don't you talked about people potentially being made redundant a little bit on down the line in a couple of weeks or months or so. Let the dust settle in your head, I think, is probably the biggest sort of advice I can to start off with. That might be a day, it might be a week, it might actually be 2 or 3 weeks, because you can then go in with a clear head and create a plan about what you want to achieve.
Let's talk about that plan. What's the controllables look like for you at the moment? What have you learned from going through that emotional roller coaster and say, actually, this is how I approach looking for the job now? You know, researching companies, freshening up your CV. You know, talk us through a little bit about your what you've done, and then how you structure your day, actually, just as importantly.
Yeah, certainly. So the day part is quite easy to do, and I'll come on to that later on. I think in regards to how I personally did, I researched, first of all, career coaches and these companies that are on LinkedIn, etc., to to really sort of solidify and enhance my CV to start off with. I think I needed to make sure that that was firing on all cylinders, that it really was not War and Peace, but it also wasn't too short. It really gave a good overview of what I'm about. And actually, I've got multiple CVs, is the honest answer, dependent on the industry, dependent on what types of roles that I'm going for. LinkedIn is great, and I have not looked at any stats in regards to how many users are logging onto LinkedIn daily, but I would imagine that it's through the roof at the moment. And leveraging my existing network was one of the first things that I did. I reached out, I identified all of the key people that I wanted to make aware who weren't already aware, because I'm in quite a fortunate position that the industry that I was in, I've got quite a good reputation, and so people knew who I was, etc. I could have those conversations and make them aware that I'm looking potentially for something over the next few weeks or months if they hear of anything. That was number one priority, I think, for myself. Then it was really doing a bit more digging around and increasing that network that I have. Everybody will see, and Jesse, please do confirm or deny this, that leveraging your network and increasing your network helps to obviously not only solidify your brand or your personal brand, but it allows to open up the potential links that you would never normally or necessarily have. So I've spent quite a lot of time on increasing my 1,000+ network to 2,000-3,000 contacts. And I think for me, it certainly has worked. So that's just one or two things that I've done to start off with just that are controllable for me, that I don't have to spend hours and hours upon, but are very akin to what I need to progress forward. I think if we look onto actually searching for companies and using job boards, the Indeeds, the Munsters, you name it, the ones that everybody's on, the Reads, etc. Not using that scattergun approach was definitely probably one of the strengths that I feel that I'm taking and I would recommend doing, and really searching for what you're looking for as a candidate, what types of companies that you're looking for, but then not necessarily applying on those boards. Actually using LinkedIn as the tool that it is there for, to find out who are the talent acquisition managers, who are the CEOs, etc., and connecting with them. I've had great conversations and great success with connecting with people directly, like from there. And I would say that all of the roles that I've had interviews, first stage, second stages, etc., have all come from that, really, more than I posted something on an Indeed, etc. Because I'm not going to profess knowing all about ATS, tracking systems and keyword searches and etc. But it's a minefield. It really is a minefield.
I mean, for everyone that's listening or viewing this, depending on what the format they're using, you never, correct me if I'm wrong, you never had to really apply for jobs the way that you're having to look for them at the moment. This is sort of a new experience to you, because you had a 100%. Reputation and experience, so suddenly you found yourself in this shitstorm that is is coronavirus, that's just added to this problem, and you're having to look for a job. This is completely new. So you've had to just come back to this and go back to some basics about like you said, you talked about CV, some career advice from mentors and coaches. Look at the research and how you approach those companies. And I think that you're spot on. I think if you're going to apply for a job, connecting with individuals within those organisations, potentially even reaching out and asking them a little bit about and I've not been shy of doing that in the past as a candidate when I'm applying for jobs, to reach out to people that work in those organisations and say, look, I'm looking to come and work for you. What's the business like? Is anything you can give me? And people do have, I think the good thing about people, they generally are, you might have to ask a few, but one will come back from that organisation and tell you something that might be very, very useful for you approaching that company. Building a relationship with any senior management or the hiring managers, or the talent team and HR teams, is important. But this goes on to the point which I just made another note to make sure we came back to, is that the approach sounds really good. I mean, it sounds like simple, it's right. I just don't know that a lot of people do it, which is the bit people need to, if they're going to listen to this, they need to go, stop the scattergun approach right now. It wastes a lot of time, it wastes a lot of your, not just your time, but everyone else that's reading it at the other end. Really have a good hard think about who you are and what you're trying to do, and then do your research, prepare, plan it out properly, connect with people, but when you're reaching out to these people and you're seeing organizations that you think are right, the culture, you talked about culture. So, for you, you want to find the right culture of business. What might that look like for you? What does culture mean, and what is a good culture of business you want to work with?
Yeah, it's for me, it's vital. I think ethics is something that I certainly profess to having quite good ethics, and I want companies that I work with, or work for, should I say, to make sure that they're aligned, that they are thinking about the customer. I think is one thing. There's so many businesses in the markets that it's all about bottom line. It's all about facts and figures on a balance sheet, etc. Which I'm not knocking that. I appreciate that's the way businesses make money, and they have to focus on that. However, too many businesses forget about that customer piece. Forget about, okay, then if we're going to bring on a new management team, or we're going to bring on a whole group of marketeers, product specialists, etc., we're giving them time to adapt and to grow, and we're not just going to hire and fire very, very quickly. And I've seen that happen so many times, that teams have grown very rapidly, and actually it's like, oh, hold on, we didn't necessarily do this in the correct manner. We need to now get rid of people.
How are you going to dig into that to know that that's not a good fit for you? Because a high growth business, it's a difficult one to go, oh, well, actually, reality is it's a high churn business, not a high growth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They look like they go hand in hand. They kick.
And I think it's about that. That's all about the questioning. So if you do have those conversations with CEOs or CROs, etc., is really delving into those real key questions about that. So what is the headcount churn? What is the net growth year on year, etc.? What is the give back into the business? What's the three? Pretty standard of what's the 12-month, 3-year, 5-year plans, etc. How are they going to achieve that? What do they see are the biggest stumbling blocks? Because a lot of those types of questions, yes, you're gaining an insight into how forward thinking they are and where the progression is, but also you can gauge the culture, you can gauge the sort of the direction of the person you're talking with. And also, to be perfectly honest, I'm the type of person, I'm quite blunt, and I would actually ask the question, looking on things like Glassdoor, etc., and say, what is the culture like? If you've already got a connection in the business, so somebody else in a different department, 100% I'd be asking those. I would actually ask those before potentially speaking to the CEO or to the hiring managers.
A question for you then, because since you're doing more Glassdoor research than I am, do you not think Glassdoor is just a moaning like portal? Like, you only ever really post on Glassdoor for two reasons. One, because you're dissatisfied with the organisation, quite rightly, but you've probably been fired or you've left and you're pissed off with them.
Yeah.
And secondly, that HR do this whole drive to the company and go, right, we need to get our ratings up in Glassdoor. If you really enjoy working here, then please go on and give a review. I suppose the question is, you're doing the research. Do you think Glassdoor's relevant?
So it's a funny one. The best way or the best analogy I can give, and this is only for myself, is I treat it like TripAdvisor. We all go on holiday. We all look at TripAdvisor, and there could be 101 great comments, and there's that one poor comment you like, bang, I'm not going. My wife and I have cancelled so many holidays because of that. So yes, you take it with a pinch of salt, but you can sort of gauge the feel that if there's a repetitive comment,
that's a fair point, Dan. I think that if you get a lot of negativity, then it's telling you a story. I think it sort of starts spilling out. You can't keep that contained in a company. There's a lot of dissatisfied people. even if they've left, so I think that's fair.
But I think just the one thing just to highlight on that is that, yes, you do take it with a pinch of salt, but it's a case of looking at that common theme, all the common themes. And if there's not, then obviously that could be a positive and negative as well. So, but it's, I've not spent lots and lots of time on there, but certainly roles that I'm progressing further on, I'm making sure that I am doing my due diligence.
I think it's sensible to look. Yeah, I think it's sensible to look. It's just, I suppose I was just being a bit flippant, whether it's just that people have gone there to moan.
Have a moan.
Just look at something that you again in regards to, you've got a child, how do you, now that you're at home, now that we're in lockdown, how are you motivating yourself? Are there any special things that you're doing or tips that you can share about what your daily routine is that keeps you, I was going to say work-life balance, but it is looking for a job. It can be a full-time thing.
Full-time job. Yeah.
Full-time job. How are you balancing that with motivating, keeping yourself positive, looking after your child, keeping the wife happy? What's that look like for you? What tips have you got?
Yeah, it's a great question, and certainly people that I've had other conversations with, I've shared this as well with them. I personally treat it very much because of having a sales background. I treat it very much as a sales, or create a sales strategy around it. The one thing that I said very, very early on to myself was that I was not going to do it 5 days a week or 7 days a week, because if you're looking at the jobs board, there's only so many jobs that just keeps churning, etc. So for me personally, I do 2.5 days for the whole week, and that's it. And I actually don't look over the weekend. Yes, I'm spending more, or we're all spending more time with our families, but that time is critical for them. And it also just gives me a bit of downtime in my own head. So those days that I am working, very much it's structured just like a normal sales day. So in the morning, very much check my emails just to see if there's been any interaction there. Check LinkedIn. I'm certainly posting content as well with sort of things that I've seen, observations, and really gauging how the markets and other industries are. And then it's methodically working through sort of a process of doing a bit of business development. I like to call it business development, reaching out, LinkedIn, having those conversations, looking at the jobs boards, then trying to find and back and forth, and then calling it a day. So some days it's a half day, and that's it. I'm done at that half day.
Leaving it behind so that you can just keep yourself nice and energized, I suppose, and take something, at least you're not draining yourself for the family and going back to them and not being
but also it's I say my emotional state, and I think everybody else's emotional state, and we talked about this right at the start of the conversation, that you've got to have the right frame of mind, you've got to come across in the right manner, etc. And you can only do that if your frame of mind is correct. And I do think that stepping away is vital.
Yeah,
probably more vital than really sitting at the computer and search. I
think that's probably the most powerful thing that obviously said a lot of great stuff, but I think it's a very powerful thing to say, and I think a very profound thing to say, and I've been a great believer in that. Sometimes there's only so much you can do. You have to take that step back.
Yeah.
And your mind, sleep's important, and taking the stress out of what you're doing to allow the mind to settle, because when you can't wake up the next morning, and certainly if you give yourself a couple of days off, you can come back to it and you see things with a fresh pair of eyes. And we probably hear that sort of cliche quite a lot, but I generally think that's true. And I think that where we're in a really unusual situation, unprecedented and all that, but looking for a job, it can be stressful at any time of life to do it. So just having good practices and doing that, I think that letting your mind structure it and taking a step back is a very, very powerful thing to say.
Yeah, I think. Sorry to just jump in there. The one thing that I would add to that as well is that because I've given myself some more free time, I am using that productively. So I'm actually, yes, I'm spending time with the family, but I'm also upskilling myself as well. So areas that I wasn't necessarily not necessarily proficient at, but things that I think I could improve on, etc. I've been doing courses, online courses, because there's lots of free content now.
Okay.
Lots of universities are giving free content out.
Personal and professional development to keep you
100%.
Sort of your pencil sharpened in the background. Okay.
100%. And I would recommend that everybody does that. And yes, time is limited. However, it will only benefit yourself moving forward.
Well, you know, knowledge is power and all of that. You know, if you're learning, you know, it's something that you're going to be able to take with you. Even if you're going to remember an nth of it, it's, you know, no one can take it away from you. So sort of think about summarizing a little bit. Is there anything that, you know, what you've talked about now, and obviously he's come across like a very positive individual, and, you know, we're in this difficult situation. How's all of this working out for you currently? You know, do you feel that you're making progress and you're learning something from it, and that you're going to find the right job for the right reasons at the right time?
Definitely. I'm not pulling my hair out at the moment, I think is probably the best way to describe it. I think that it is a case of I know what good looks like. I know what the type of environment I want to work, company, etc. I know my skill set, and I know that what I can bring to businesses, and so I am quite positive about the whole situation. That could change drastically over the next few months.
In a few weeks' time, but you've got to stay motivated. You know, there is a network of people around you. And I know, obviously, you speak to other people that I know, and we talk regularly. I think that leaning on your community, building that network, you know, stay strong, stay focused, keep doing these things, because those good habits will pay dividends. And that would be the thing that I'd say to everyone that's listening to this, you know, and it's important for you that you carry on doing that as well. You know, so look, thank you so much for your time. I think I'm going to bring it to a close. I think that we've had, I don't know how long we've been talking for actually, but quite a while. Hopefully there's some stuff there that, you know, when we reflect on it, that it's going to be very, very useful for other people that are looking for jobs. I mean, my personal statement about you is, you know, that if there's anybody out there that is looking for a highly skilled salesperson with experience, you know, leadership ability, working in the tech space, then you've got a perfect candidate sitting here right now, Dan Neeld, that can come to your organization, even as, I think I'm right saying that, you know, even as a first man on the ground, as an individual contributor, to help show you how to scale that out if that's what's needed, or to come in and jump in on a ready-made team. But, you know, I think that, I think that you're going to be highly successful, and it's been great getting to know you recently, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the future, Dan.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you very much. People that are looking for a role, definitely stay positive. Critical, and you're right. Yeah, that individual contributor all the way through to full sales leadership. That's certainly I'm very much open and willing and wanting to progress into that.
Listen, mate, it's been a pleasure. Let's bring it to an end. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. Take care.